it's definitely something where, I feel like my approach to testing is very pragmatic. And I think that's something that people have connected with, because I think there's a lot of people who just have a really hard time figuring out where to start with testing.
Right.
Because it's just, when you start digging into it and you start seeing, okay, like you need to do everything as TDD, or you need to do this, all of this. And it's just like, man, like, crawl before you walk before you run, run before you fly. It's definitely one of those things where, one of the things that I have always been really interested in is actually UI testing, because one of the things that I've seen is no matter what the state of your code base is, you can always test the UI and make sure it's doing what the app needs to do for customers. Are the people that are actually using your application going to be able to use it the way that they want to? And that's something that you can test no matter like what pit of snakes is in your code base. And, one of the things, so I did a talk in 2016 at UIConf, where I called it Outside In, because the movie Inside Out had just come out. It's sort of the idea of putting like a scaffolding of UI tests up around your application, so that you sort of preserve the facade. If you've ever been in like an older European city, even in Chicago, sometimes they'll like have like an Art Deco building or something, and they'll put all the scaffolding up around the very like historic facade, and then they'll go in the back where it's just like brick that's been falling apart for 50 years, and they'll just completely destroy the whole thing. But they'll have that scaffolding up in order to hold up the part that everybody else sees. And you can't see all the stuff that's happening in the background to like make the building stronger and not collapse. And what UI tests do is provide that same scaffolding. Like you can work, once you have this assurance that like, okay, is this still going to work for the people who need it to work? Then you can start just hammering stuff out in the back and making things better with this sort of safety net of, does this still actually work for users?
Yes.
And, I think that was definitely a technique that I used when I was, it's also something that's nice in terms of if you're new to an app, it's a good way to familiarize yourself with what the app actually does. There's always sort of, what is the app supposed to do versus what does the app do? Because there's always, there's either bugs or there's just features that never got documented, or, like I've definitely come into a situation where I'm like, okay, well, so is there any documentation of like what our feature set is? And they're like, it's the app. And I'm like, that's not ideal. But this is the other thing that you do when you add some of those UI tests is you sort of inadvertently add some documentation of what is it even supposed to be doing.